During your inauguration speech, there's something that caught the African immigrant attention, that you said that new immigrants have been able to crack the code of doing business in this state. And we have a lot of African immigrants who have a lot of small businesses in healthcare, transportation, and name it, a lot of it. But many people in the African community feel that they are not well connected with the state, with the government, with the state government. So we would want to know from you if there are some policies or there are things that can be put in place so we can have some connections here in the State House in terms of dealing with African immigrant issues.
Well, let me give you sort of, you talked about small business. Let me give you sort of three things I think are worth mentioning. One is, one of the things we proposed along with our budget was to double the state's participation in the Earned Income Tax Credit, which is a federal program that the Commonwealth of Mass currently participates in, but we basically want the state to double its participation in, which would the way the Earned Income Tax Credit works is it creates a credit, a state credit, on top of the federal credit for working families, low-income working families. And second thing I would say is one of the things we did was create or elevate the state's access and opportunity function and put it into the governor's office and assign a deputy chief of staff to it, Habes Roas, who is going to be responsible for a number of things, including simplifying the state's procurement processes so that small businesses have the ability to bid and participate in that process. State buys $5 to $7 billion worth of goods and services every year, and it's a very complicated and difficult process, and one that in many cases a lot of small businesses could actually provide the services and provide them at a cost-effective rate, but they don't have the infrastructure, the professional capability to actually play in that space. That's a problem. We need to simplify that. We know that, and we're going to do something about it. The third thing I would say is we put several $1 million into our budget this year to do a couple of things, and I hope this stuff survives the process as it works through the legislature, but it's basically about providing technical support for urban communities and small businesses and Main Street businesses in those communities to both help them plan, but also to make investments in beautification and Main Street development activities. Because a lot of the retail businesses that operate along main streets in many of our urban communities are small businesses. Many of them are ethnic businesses, and as we go forward, that's one of the things we're going to want to do more of. Work with local communities, especially urban communities, and especially with small business providers on main streets and urban communities to help them, help their communities and help themselves, mostly working through state-local partnerships. We put a few $1 million into that this year. That's something we want to do more of going forward. Yes, ma'am.
Going back to the driver's license, you said that you want a process that people will not abuse, right?
Correct.
Unfortunately, it seems to me that the process of getting a driver's license is abused for many people, unfortunately.
I agree, and that's a problem.
Right.
Which we need to fix.
My question to you, what is the difference between the process that you have now that excludes
That is flawed.
a big portion of the population,
Right.
which is a working population that contributes
Yep.
with tax and everything for the state, and having a driver license that would allow everybody to drive that qualifies, that pass the test and everything that qualifies, so you know who these people are, and it's easy.
But that's just it, you don't know who they are, right? You have a process right now that doesn't adequately or accurately in many cases identify who somebody is because it's easily manipulated and has been. That, you don't solve that problem by just simply making it bigger. My view on this is that, first of all, and I've said this many times, I don't know why the governors, and frankly the mayors, haven't created a coalition to push the federal government to deal with this issue, right? Because the fact that the immigration system is broken is a function of the lack of will, the lack of imagination, whatever you want to call it, at the federal level to solve this. And I've said many times, and I'm trying to figure out how to incorporate this into some of our own initiatives. I really think the governors and the mayors ought to be much more aggressive about the federal government to deal with this issue, because they are far better positioned to solve this than any of the rest of us are. And anything that we end up doing is on the margin to begin with. And secondly, with respect to the driver's license piece, we already have a process that people abuse on a pretty regular basis. I don't understand how making that process bigger makes it better.
How do you solve the process not abused by anyone?
I think you got to get the federal government to do something about the state's broken immigration policy, which is really what's creating a big piece of this in the first place.
Time for one more question, everyone.